The Indiana Fever just pulled off the most shocking upset in WNBA playoff history. And what happened in those final 7 seconds against Atlanta wasn't just basketball, it was pure magic that nobody saw coming. 5 players down with season-ending injuries. Caitlin Clark ruled out for the entire postseason. Sophie Cunningham season over. The worst championship odds of any playoff team. Yet somehow, this decimated roster just stunned the third-seeded Atlanta Dream and punched their ticket to the semifinals for the first time in a decade. This wasn't supposed to happen. When the Indiana Fever lost 5 key players to season-ending injuries, including their superstar Caitlin Clark, everyone wrote them off. Vegas gave them the worst championship odds at plus 20,000. Analysts called their playoff hopes virtually non-existent. The media painted them as sacrificial lambs heading into a buzzsaw against a 30-win Atlanta Dream team that was supposed to steamroll them on the way to the final. But what unfolded over those 40 minutes in Atlanta on Thursday night would shock the entire basketball world. Aaliyah Boston's game-winning layup with 7.4 seconds remaining, Lexie Hull's clutch steal on the inbound pass, a 7-0 run in the final 2 minutes that left the Gateway Center Arena in stunned silence. The 6-seeded Fever had just eliminated the 3rd seed and advanced to their first semifinal since 2015. The injury carnage that led to this moment reads like a medical disaster film. Caitlin Clark, the face of the franchise and 2-time All-Star, missed the entire playoffs after battling left quad, left groin, right groin, and ankle injuries that limited her to just 13 games all season. She last played on July 15th, and despite working tirelessly in rehab, time simply ran out. Sophie Cunningham, their defensive stopper, went down with a torn MCL. Sydney Colson suffered a torn ACL. Ayari McDonald broke her foot. Chloe Bibby needed knee surgery. 5 rotation players gone. But that wasn't the whole story of how this team achieved the impossible. When you lose that much talent, conventional wisdom says you tank the season and prepare for next year. Instead, Coach Stephanie White and this gutted roster decided they were going to fight. Every practice became about proving doubters wrong. Every game became a statement that they wouldn't just roll over and accept defeat. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. Players who'd never been featured stepped into starring roles. Odyssey Sims signed on a hardship contract after the injury decimation became their floor general. Lexie Hull evolved from role player to defensive anchor. Kelsey Mitchell shouldered the scoring load without their primary playmaker. Natasha Howard provided veteran leadership when everything seemed hopeless. What happened next would shock everyone watching the regular season unfold. Despite the catastrophic injury list, this team kept winning games they had no business winning. They clinched a playoff spot on September 7th with a dominant 94-65 victory over Washington. The basketball world scratched their heads. How is a team missing their 5 best players still making the postseason? The answer lay in the culture Stephanie White had built. This wasn't just about X's and O's anymore. It was about proving that heart could overcome talent gaps, that chemistry could trump star power, that a group of players fighting for each other could achieve something special even when the deck was completely stacked against them. Well, Game 1 against Atlanta was a reality check. The Dream dominated 80-68, looking every bit like the superior team on paper. Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray combined for 40 points. The Fever shot just 34.9% from the field and looked overwhelmed by the moment. Critics lined up to say, "We told you so." This injury-depleted roster had finally hit their ceiling. But something shifted before Game 2. Maybe it was the comfort of returning to Gainbridge Fieldhouse for their first playoff home game in 9 years. Maybe it was the energy from fans who'd waited nearly a decade for meaningful basketball in October. Whatever it was, the Fever came out like a completely different team and demolished Atlanta 77-60. Kelsey Mitchell erupted for 19 points, going 4 for 8 from three-point range. Aaliyah Boston controlled the paint with 15 points and 5 boards. The defense that had looked porous in Game 1 suddenly locked down, holding the Dream's explosive offense to just 60 points. As the third quarter ended, Lexie Hull drained a three-pointer at the buzzer that sent the crowd into absolute delirium and put Indiana up by 15 heading into the fourth. The series was heading back to Atlanta, tied 1-1, setting up a winner-take-all Game 3 that would determine which team's season would continue. For the Fever, it was an opportunity to complete one of the most unlikely playoff series victories in league history. For the Dream, it was a chance to avoid becoming the answer to a trivia question about the biggest upset of the decade. Thursday night in Georgia became an instant classic. Both teams traded baskets throughout the first 3 quarters, with neither able to gain significant separation. The pace was frantic, the shots were falling, and the tension was palpable. With 2 minutes and 32 seconds remaining, Ryan Howard buried a three-pointer that gave Atlanta an 85-80 lead. The Dream were 5 points away from advancing. The Fever's miraculous season appeared to be over. What happened in those final 2 minutes will be talked about for years. Kelsey Mitchell, who'd carried the offense all season without Clark, attacked the rim with violence and scored through contact to cut the lead to 3. The crowd noise was deafening, but Indiana wasn't done. Lexie Hull, the unheralded role player who'd transformed herself into a clutch performer, drove baseline and scored with 43 seconds left to make it a 1-point game. Atlanta had 2 chances to extend their lead, but the Fever defense that had been inconsistent all series suddenly became impenetrable. Howard missed a three-pointer that would have iced the game. With 7.4 seconds remaining and Indiana down by 1, Odyssey Sims found Aaliyah Boston completely alone under the basket. How Boston got so open remains a mystery, but she converted the easiest layup of her career to give the Fever an 86-85 lead. But the drama wasn't over. Atlanta had one final chance to steal the victory and advance to the semifinals. As they tried to inbound the ball, chaos erupted. Howard had trouble getting the pass off, players were scrambling everywhere, and then, from seemingly nowhere, Lexie Hull poked the ball away from behind. The steal was so clean, so perfectly timed, that it left the Atlanta crowd in stunned silence. Indiana got the ball to Odyssey Sims, who was immediately fouled. She made 1 of 2 free throws, giving Atlanta one last desperate heave with 1.2 seconds remaining. Brianna Jones launched a three-pointer that clanged off the rim, and suddenly, the Fever were celebrating the most improbable series victory in recent memory. The statistical improbability of what just happened cannot be overstated. A team that lost 5 rotation players to season-ending injuries, including their franchise player, had just eliminated a 30-win team on the road in a winner-take-all game. The Fever finished the regular season with the worst championship odds of any playoff team. They were supposed to be happy just making the postseason. Instead, they're 4 wins away from a WNBA championship. Kelsey Mitchell led the way with 24 points in the clinching game, proving she could be the primary scoring option when everything was on the line. Aaliyah Boston's 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists showed why she's one of the most complete players in the league. But it was the role players who truly stole the show. Odyssey Sims with 16 points and 8 assists, Lexie Hull with a clutch shot and game-sealing steal, players who weren't supposed to be stars becoming heroes when it mattered most. The coaching performance from Stephanie White deserves special recognition. Taking a roster that was gutted by injuries and turning them into a cohesive unit capable of winning playoff series is masterful. Her ability to maximize each player's strengths while hiding their weaknesses kept this team competitive when they should have been lottery-bound. The adjustments she made throughout the Atlanta series, the motivational messages that kept players believing, the tactical decisions that put them in position to succeed, it was a clinic in getting the most out of limited resources. Looking ahead to the semifinals against the Las Vegas Aces, this Fever team has already exceeded every reasonable expectation. They were written off when Clark got hurt. They were dismissed when Cunningham and the others went down. They were counted out after Game 1 against Atlanta. Yet here they are, preparing for their deepest playoff run since 2015. The psychological impact of breaking that 10-year drought cannot be understated. Every player who puts on a Fever uniform from now on will know that success is possible regardless of circumstances, that injuries don't define your season, that chemistry and heart can overcome talent deficits, that refusing to quit when everything looks hopeless can lead to magical moments. This victory also validates every decision the organization made during their rebuild, bringing back Stephanie White as head coach, building a culture of resilience and accountability, developing depth throughout the roster so they could survive catastrophic injuries. The foundation they laid over the past few years is now paying dividends in the biggest moments. The individual growth stories within this team victory are remarkable. Lexie Hull transforming from bench player to clutch performer. Odyssey Sims coming in on a hardship contract and becoming their floor general. Young players like Hull and Boston accelerating their development timelines out of pure necessity. Veterans like Mitchell and Howard finding new levels when their leadership was needed most. But the Indiana Fever accomplished in that Atlanta arena transcends basketball statistics. They didn't just beat the dream, they beat history, they beat expectations, and most importantly, they beat the voice in their heads saying they weren't good enough. The question now becomes whether this is just the beginning of something special or if they've already reached their ceiling. Based on what we witnessed in that elimination game, based on the heart and determination displayed when everything was stacked against them, this feels like just the first chapter of a much longer success story. The Las Vegas Aces better take notice. This isn't the same injury-depleted team that limped into the playoffs. This is a group that's discovered they can beat anybody when they play with house money and nothing to lose. The Indiana Fever are back, and the rest of the WNBA is about to find out what happens when a team stops worrying about what they don't have and starts maximizing what they do. If you're as shocked by this incredible playoff run as we are, drop a comment below telling us how far you think they can go. And don't forget to subscribe for more WNBA coverage as this unbelievable postseason continues to deliver moments nobody saw coming.